Hello friends, my name is Yogesh and I am going to talk about the Age of Chaucer, and we will focus on particular work, that is the Canterbury Tales. So let us start. The Age of Chaucer covers a period of glaring social contrast and rapid political change. It was essentially an era of unrest and transition. It is characterized by a noticeable departure from medievalism to an era of rational inquiry and critical understanding. It marks the beginning of a new language and literature. Now, let us see the salient characteristic or the general characteristic of the age. First thing is that it is an era of transition. Second thing is there is a growth of nationalism, and you have Black Death, that means plague, famine, and because of this Black Death and famine, you have a social unrest. Uh, there is a corruption of the church that led to Reformation movement, and another characteristic is the dawn of new learning in this period. So the first characteristic, an era of transition. Chaucer was born in tumultuous period of social, religious, and political change. The spirit and romantic idealism was at its climax, but the change from medieval to modern was slow and imperceptible. Of course, England was characteristically medieval. The strange amalgam of love, war, and religion reached perhaps its fullest development at this time, or you can say at this era. Literature, another important feature is that literature changed from oral to written. The focus shifted from the text to reader, and reader was given more importance than writer. Then there is value of self-expression and originality are upgraded. English established as a literary language by adapting, translating, and imitating Greek and Latin texts. You have a feudalism, chivalry, and church were on their decline during this period. Now, another characteristic is that there is a growth of nationalism. The age was remarkable for the growth of national spirit. Then there was a striking awareness of unity of custom, temperaments, and language. Remember the East Midlands, which become the language of capital and university. This is the question which has been asked in UGC NET exam. Then French and English amalgamated to form standard English, and you can see that influence of the church was on the wane. Political, intellectual, and spiritual influence had diminished. But in the reign of John, who was clergy, legislation was working to nurture the growth of national consciousness. Lit, uh, then you have one of the tragic disease, that is plague, which is known as a black death. Then there is a famine and social unrest, particularly natural calamities increase suffering of common people. Black death, which is generally known as a plague, occurred in 1348 and 1349, followed by a famine wiped out the third population of England. It is the age of social unrest and economical troubles. Laborers become unsatisfied with their salary, and efforts were made to keep the laborers under control with the help of legislation. The French War led to cost heavy burdens of taxation to the common people. Then you have conflict between King Richard and his subject resulted in endless discord and confusion. This is a black death plague. It is known as a black death because the skin becomes white, skin becomes black. You can see the picture. Then there is the corruption of the church and Reformation movement. The corruption of the church led to the Reformation movement. Church was the seat of power. prestige and influence. They lived in godless and worldly ways in wealth and luxury. Clergy were ignorant and careless, and superstition became social evil. You have John Wycliffe. The lifespan of Wycliffe is 1320 to 1840, 1320 to 1384, and generally he is considered as the morning star for Reformation, who challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. That is known as the Lollard movement, and it is the first important movement raised against Catholicism. Then John Wycliffe wrote some religious pamphlets and complete English version of the Bible. Earlier Bible was in a Hebrew language, and only the translation, Latin translation, was available of the Bible. Religious reforms. Pilgrimages were common. Pilgrimages were common during this period. A religious reformer opposed church on ground of idleness and laxity. Then, as I've told you, that it leads to the Reformation. So you have the dawn of new learning. That is, you can say that the age is remarked by the spirit of new learning. In the age of Chaucer, the medieval habits and traditional still in practice. Then you have study of the literature of classical antiquity, and art is not limited only for art but for moral ideas, and most of the works influenced by humanism. Then there is a sense of beauty, the delight in life, and the secular spirit comes in practice during this age. People love ancient Greek philosophers and their philosophy. During this age, England passed through the journey of medievalism and come to beginning of the modern world, and it was the world of medieval, also the world of coming renaissance, excited by new ideas. Now let us talk about Geoffrey Chaucer. There is a question mark on the birth year of Chaucer. Some critics believe that he was born in 1343, and some critics believe that he was born in 1340. But remember that lifespan is generally considered as 1343 to 1400, and you can see the picture of Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer is generally considered as the father of English poetry, greatest English poet of the medieval ages. He is the first poet of national importance, author, poet, philosopher. He was an author, poet, philosopher, and alchemist. Chaucer also maintained an active career in civil service as a bureaucrat, courtier, and diplomat. He traveled in Flanders, France, Spain, and Italy, where he observes various types of men, manners, and fashions, which highly influenced him for his literary creation. As I've told you, he was born in London around 1343. The birth date is unknown, remain unknown to us. He was son of wealthy London wine merchant. He has educated in he had educated in St. Paul Cathedral School and later at Inner Temple, where he studied law. In 1357, he became a courtier, diplomat, and civil servant. In 1368 to 1708, he was sent to France, Genoa, and Florence, where he influenced by the works of authors like Dante, Boccaccio, and Froissart. You can see that the works of Chaucer, Roman de la Rose, Job, the House of the Fame, the Legend of Good Woman, the Parliament of Fowls, the Book of Duchess, Troilus and Cressida, and most important, the Canterbury Tales. Now, his literary career is can be divided into three periods. Early period, that is up to 1370, Middle period, that is up to 1370 to 1387, and the last period where he wrote Canterbury Tales. So the first work is translation of Roman de la Rose, then there is the Book of Duchies, the House of Fame, the Parliament of Fowls, translation of Consolation of Philosophy, Troilus and Cressida, the Legend of Good Woman, and the Canterbury Tales. These are the important works written by Geoffrey Chaucer. Now you can say the features of Chaucer work, that he has a gift of storytelling and descriptive power. He has a gift of descriptive power, use of musical element, then you have personal touches, charming, humorous, rarely philosophize, softness in narration, and perennial interest in humanity. Happy world, as there is pain and prosperity but no agony or rebellion. So these are the general characteristics of Chaucer's writing. Now the most important work, which is the Canterbury Tales, and it is believed that it was written after 1387. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales influenced by Boccaccio's Decameron. Now there are 29 pilgrims meet at Tabard Inn. They are going from London to Canterbury, and they have decided that each one will tell two stories while going to the journey and while returning to London. So if you have 29 pilgrims plus one host, that is Harry Bailey, and Chaucer is also included in these pilgrims, means you have 31 characters, and there are 24 stories, and 23 of them tell stories. In fact, there are only 24 stories, where Chaucer wanted to write 124 stories, but he could manage to complete only 24 stories. And in this collection of the short story, Chaucer tells two stories. One is tale of Thopas and another is a tale of Melibus. The Canterbury Tales begins with the Knight's Tale. This is the first tale, Knight's Tale, and it ends with Parson's Tale. This is the last tale, and it ends with retractions, Chaucer's apology for the vulgar and unworthy parts of this book. Okay, you can see the picture of pilgrims meet at Tabard Inn, and you can see that Chaucer has divided his character in upper class, middle class, and lower class. Knight, squire, prioress, monk, friar, merchant, clerk of Oxford, man of law, franklin, parson, plowman, reeve, summoners, partners. These are the characters of his stories. You can see the picture of the partner, the knight, the squire, the monk, the friar, the summoner, the parson, the nun priest, the second nun, the prioress, the merchant, the clerk of Oxford, the wife of Bath, the man of law, the shipman, the physician, the reeve, the franklin, the municipal, the miller, the cook, and Chaucer himself. And this is the picture of pilgrims delivering tales. Now, Chaucer is generally considered as one of the greatest writer of English language. In fact, he is considered as the father of English poetry for his contribution to the English literature. First metrical artist, humorist, and humanist. He was the first national poet of England. He gave reform and reshaped language as a powerful instrument of expression, informed musical sweetness and liquidity to language, and he was the first man to use naked words. And you can say that he believes that poetry is the free secular spirit, portrayed comprehensive picture of contemporary life, keen observer of man and manners, realistically presented the social, economical, and religious condition of the age. Now, Chesterton humorously remarks about Chaucer that if Chaucer is the father of poetry, he is the grandfather of English fiction, and Edward Albert calls Chaucer as the earliest of the great moderns. So, I hope you have understood the topic. Thank you so much.